customers don't care about your hard work. Right? Being fast doesn't mean that you are delivering the right value. I'm a big believer of doing work in smaller packets, reducing the batch size. So it's most of the time people try to blame each other, saying that it is not my problem, it is somebody else's problem. I've seen many leaders try to change the behavior of the people. Uncertainty is not the real enemy, but at the same time, as long as you wanted to learn from uncertainty, it's going to create a bigger impact. If you're not learning, you are probably the one who is moving faster, but at the same time, you're not moving faster on the relevant things that matter.
Hello everyone and welcome to today's episode. If being busy meant being effective, most companies would be winning it, but they are not. Today's conversation is about closing that gap. And to explore that, I am joined by someone who has spent over 2 decades inside organizations, watching where work breaks, where it slows down, and what actually fixes it. I am joined by none other than the founder of Sane Innovation, Mr. Sekhar Burra. Sekhar sir, so good to meet you again. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. So I'm Sekhar Burra. I spent over 20 years working in corporate organizations across various domains like healthcare, finance, fintech, insurance, and banking, manufacturing, as well as even startups also. So I worked with various teams, organizations, and leaders. And one thing that I found was most of the performance-related problems, they are not with the people. Like 60 to 70% of the problems are not people problems. They are the kind of system that they have created within the organization. So over the last 9 to 10 years, I worked with and I trained more than 25,000 people on various agile practices. It's not only the frameworks, I helped them to unlearn their old ways of working and help them to learn the new ways or the relevant ways of working. And more importantly, I myself as a coach, I don't give a lot of advices that don't work, but at the same time, I make sure that people are working on things that really matter to them.
That's such a rich experience, I must say. But like you said about, working with different teams across industries, when you step into a workplace today, like you mentioned, what is that one thing or one aspect that you feel is most out of sync with the world that they're operating in?
See, for me, most of the organizational processes, ecosystems, or a culture, it was designed for calm seas. So, and it was never designed for chaotic seas. It's something like this. I call it as more of predictive world versus adaptive world. So predictive world, in my languages, where I think I know everything that is going to happen in future. So most of the time I say that, okay, I know the timelines. I know the quality of my delivery. I think I know how much cost something is going to take for me to build it or to develop it. There are so many things in this world. Maybe what I always see in organizations is they build stuff for a predictive world. On the other hand, there is something called as adaptive world. Adaptive world means I don't know everything. I know something, but I don't know everything. But I get into it and start adapting as the things keeps changing. So that is to me what I call it as an adaptive world, where majority of the problems that you get nowadays are something which we didn't anticipate it.
Yeah.
So when things are pretty chaotic or things are very uncertain, how do you really work towards achieving your goals or achieving your deliveries? And you still adapt that deliver most to the customer value. Yeah.
Now that you say this, listening to you, it feels like it's less of a skill gap and more of a mindset gap. I think that's a very powerful way to see it.
Yeah.
So I think if the old ways of working are not really working today. Let's talk about what actually is working. Let's talk about rhythm. Why do you think the modern world, the modern working style needs iteration so badly? And why do that long predictive planning and process and working style, they are struggling so much today?
See, there is something what I call it as a Parkinson's law. Parkinson's law says usually work expands to the time that you give it to them. So what does that mean? Let's say, for example, in a 6 months project, when do you think the real work happens? Maybe last few weeks or maybe a month before, 15 days. In a 3 months project, when does the real work happens? Even, yeah. So most of the time what I see is you take a 5 minutes task and for which you know that it's going to take exactly 5 minutes and you give people 1 hour to finish it. And then in most of the cases, I have seen people spreading this 5 minutes across 1 hour. And that's something that I have seen most of the time. And that is the point of iterating or working in rhythm. So that's why we call it as sprinting. We call it as shorter sprints. Gives you sense of urgency. Shorter sprints make problems visible early in the game. Longer duration projects, most of the time, people only run in the last minute. The pressure usually builds up just before the deadline. And, in a longer duration projects, the problems, they surface and dilute. We forget about the problems that we faced in the first month, in the 6th month. So most of the time, that is why I always prefer iterating in smaller loops rather than doing something big bang. And most of the time in a corporate world that I have seen is people keep doing everything big bang. So let's say, for example, it could be your project deliveries are big bang. It could be your resource planning is big bang. It could be your budgeting is big bang. So most of the time, I cannot lock something at the beginning of the year when things are constantly changing. Because I think that I know it. So in a predictive world, that's what I wanted to say. In a predictive world, I think that I know where this budget is going to spend. And then I lock the budget at the beginning of the year. But when things change, now there's a lot of firefighting. And that is why I always say that I believe in iterating something, have a bigger vision, and start iterating into this feedback loops where iteration is going to add a lot of value to your customers. So it's something like this, no? What happens if you don't iterate? So you take a project, and I've seen one of the startup where they have taken a product idea and started building this product for 1 year. At the end of 1 year, they came to know that whatever they developed so far is not what the market wants.
After 1 year.
After 1 year. So it's something like this, no? You fail at the end of 1 year or you fail at the end of 1 month. In which of these two, you save a lot of time and money from building a wrong product, for example. So this is the advantage of iterating. So if you don't iterate, you might lose really heavily at the end of the project.
So rhythm isn't about pressure, it's about clarity.
It's about clarity. It's about incorporating the feedback from the customer and making it relevant to a customer.
The irony is sometimes people wonder that, when they are given deadlines, that kills creativity. But I think coming from your experience, it's the other way around, isn't it?
Yeah. So there are two words what is the difference between faster delivery and faster value delivery? These are two words. So faster delivery is, I got something, I understood something, I started developing it and in a very big bang way. And then we worked really hard. We delivered it to a customer and customer says, you know what, I was not expecting this. And now tell me, what is the kind of customer satisfaction score will you get there? Nothing. But you can always argue that, hey, you know what, I worked really hard. No, customers don't care about your hard work, right? They care about whether whatever was delivered, does it even matter to me or not? On the contrary, the same 6 months, you keep taking their feedback. You develop a small piece, you keep taking their feedback, and then start iterating and keep delivering that in smaller chunks, and then see what happens. So then you get a very good customer satisfaction score. So most of the internal processes or a system that I see in many organizations are designed for internal compliance and processes, not caring a lot about value delivery.
So being fast doesn't mean you're being effective and delivering what the customer.
Being fast doesn't mean that you are delivering the right value. Yeah, so many people are fast. Nowadays, everyone is fast. Everyone spends a lot of time. Fast is not equivalent to value delivered.
So, in other words, rhythm and short cycles, they help teams learn faster, more effectively.
Yeah.
But tell me, I feel because only when they respond honestly to it, only when they take away that part very honestly.
Yeah.
So, in your opinion, what values or habits make that kind of learning possible?
Yeah. So one thing is, how transparent are we? So many times, in many organizations, I have seen information is withheld within key people in the organization. Not everyone in the organization know the same information. So I would look at transparency, inspection, adaptation, and feedback. How you make it visible to those. You do a piece of work and make it visible to those for whom it really matters. So that is one. And then how well you capture the feedback from them, and then you try to adapt to the feedback and making it better over a period of time. It is something like this, no? I want to work out in the gym, but I don't take instructions from my gym trainer.
You're working in silos then.
Yeah. So most of the time, if you're not taking feedback, from your gym trainer on how to get something better, then probably you're not really there yet. So are you doing your own exercise in secretly, or you're making your exercise visible to your gym trainer and taking feedback? The other thing which I always focus on is focus. Yeah. So
What?
yeah. So are you totally focused on the real goal, or you are scattered across? There's so many things where focus is one of the main thing. And the other thing is, I focus on removing the waste. Okay. So most of the time in organizations, what I see is you have a long chain of approval processes.
A lot.
Yeah, long chain of approval processes within the organization where people are waiting for multiple approvals to move forward.
An important one. Some of those important decisions take a back seat.
Yeah. So because of, it's not only the approvals, it's about your systemic reporting structure, where I wanted to make sure that someone is aware, my boss is aware of this information, but at the same time, my boss says I'm busy until tomorrow. So I'm waiting for my boss approvals to do it. So it's a kind of system that you creates lot of waste from the system. And then because of which things usually get slower and slower and slower. So most of the time, making sure that you have a system in place that encourages faster feedback, and making sure that I want to ensure that the value is delivered faster, rather than, okay, I cannot get my job done because I'm waiting on somebody's work, and at the same time they are waiting for their boss approval. And then you get into this web of complexities where people cannot get anything done. And many people defend this process, a structure, or a systemic complexity. They defend this. And the reason why they do it is they wanted to live with that outdated ways of working.
I think this culture is going on and on and on. Nobody's actually questioning it.
Yeah. So it's been a culture for last 40, 50 years and within many organizations. Yeah.
So, like you rightly said about teams, if they want to learn fast, they need to act on it. But tell me, how do small batches help, the way teams actually collaborate?
It's something like this, no? You are shifting, or you are moving your house from one house to another house. So let's say from one side there is packing happening. So you hired a movers company, and what they did is they packed everything.
Yeah.
So let's say all these packages turned out to be like 40, 50 packages. I have seen many movers companies, they try to transfer like 5 to 10 packages at the same time to the new house.
Yeah.
And then while the old packaging, packaging in the old house is happening, at the same time, they try to unpack some of the packets in the new house simultaneously. What is happening here? I believe this is the way how you have to deliver value to a customer. It's not all about delivering a big bang. So how do you deliver that small incremental value to a customer rather than doing really big bang? So smaller delivery, smaller packets of delivery reduces costly mistakes. At the same time, it also makes customer inspect what is getting delivered, how is getting delivered, and it creates a lot of opportunities for customers to give feedback where you can adapt this feedback for future packets. So, true. And that's why I'm a big believer of doing work in smaller packets, reducing the batch size rather than doing everything big bang. So this concept is possible in every organization. See, I'll tell you, most of the recent organizations are not assembly lines. So where, okay, I finish my work and pass it on to the next team, and next team finish the work and pass it on to the other team. They keep throwing it over the wall. And let's say, for example, there is a mistake that happens. And then you know what happens? People say that, no, it's not my problem. It is somebody else's problem.
That's when they delegate. That's not my problem. Where to address it, where to fix it? Yeah, no idea.
Yeah. So it's most of the time people try to blame each other, saying that it is not my problem. It is somebody else's problem. So that is why I often say that smaller batches add a lot of value to a customer, because you have three options. One, you deliver nothing, you deliver something, you deliver everything. Okay. So if delivering nothing is not going to make your customer happy, if you cannot deliver everything, can you try to deliver something? So that really matters a lot. So that is what I look at, new ways of working. Rather than delivering all the 100 requirements at the end of 6 months, what are the top 10 requirements that I keep delivering at the end of each month? So that's why moving away from a big bang delivery and moving towards continuous and iterative deliveries.
So I think, is it fair to say that small batches just doesn't change output, it changes behavior?
It changes a lot of behavior. It changes a lot of thought process. It also helps a lot of customers to look at it and say that, hey, you know what? I have my the first two batches you delivered and you didn't really did a good job, and you better correct it.
Yeah.
Because what happens is, I've seen many projects. I used to work in US government projects, and initially the project was planned for 3 months, and then while you're working towards the end of the 3 month, they push some more changes into the project, and then the end date gets extended. So they keep pushing the changes, and end date keeps getting extended. By the end of 2 years, I was part of one project. By the end of 2 years, they just say that this is not what I want. Wow. You wasted a lot of time, lot of money, lot of resources, lot of effort and everything. So that is why in our world we do an opposite pick. So what does that mean? How do I develop a small piece of it and take a feedback and keep iterating on it?
Break it down.
Yeah, break it down. Yeah. So the ability to break a bigger chunk of work into smaller pieces matters a lot here.
Very interestingly, because I feel these ideas, they work at a smaller scale. But when organization grows, a lot of things change. Not just the people joining in, the changes within the process. Tell me, when the organization grows, what things should change and what should absolutely not?
See, one thing that I have seen, every small startup is like a village. You know how people make decisions in a village. So they sit under a tree and then they just talk over each other, and then they just make a decision that this is the direction in which we go. Now, as organizations grows, when you are adding hundreds and hundreds of people, what usually happens is they start putting all the processes in place. I'm not someone who is against the process, but at the same time, they put so many processes, and a process that is going to add value for one department is going to be a blocker for another department. Yeah. And, people get into that department versus this department kind of fights.
I've personally experienced.
Yeah, most of the time you get into so much of process overheads within the organization where it's always like, okay, as a department, we have done our job, the other team did not do our job. And most of the time, this is where things start getting messier and we don't know what to do. And most of the time, what people do is one department, they finish their work and write an email to the highest level. And then, it keeps on going into an escalation loop. That is what I call it as. So to solve this problem, what I often advise is, how do you make sure that you design processes around the customer value? Okay. So let's say, for example, if a customer wants to buy a small service, let's say a customer wanted to buy a water bottle for you. And then, what happens is there is one sales team sending a request to a different team. That team sends an invoice. This team wait for the customer to pay. So it's the kind of process that, and then it will be vetted by legal team, that team, this team. Oh my God. And then all this, what happens is it adds to the delay, and customers usually gets frustrated because they have to wait for your process overhead to finish. Yeah. And this is what I have seen many times in many organizations. Processes kills customer satisfaction. Process overhead, in fact. Process overhead kills customer satisfaction most of the time, where there are departments across the organization where they are trying to follow a specific process or maybe a redundant process, and then a customer is waiting for you to finish your process.
But in this case, how do leaders know whether the structure is actually helping the flow or quietly killing it?
See, most of the time, I would look at, if you wanted to create a process to understand the flow rather than putting very strict controls. And most of the time, for me, they keep playing around multiple variables. You want a cost, you want schedule, you want, time, you want quality, you want so many variables you play with. And it's like playing with constraints. And most of the time, what happens is every constraint is mandatory. And if you try to do this, it will break the other variable. If you try to comply to that variable, something else will break. And then people start getting frustrated and they don't know what they have to do. Let's say I have seen in many organizations where there are 10 variables. Out of 10 variables, that person totally, complain to 9 variables, and one variable goes wrong. And then there's always blame, escalation, everything. And then that person hates the job.
You're rightly so, because as organizations grow, that metrics and dashboards tend to take over.
Yeah, most of the time, it's all about metrics and dashboards, and most of the time, what they try to, they ignore the customer value. And everyone, let's say, for example, you are measuring me based on number of foots I run every day, number of or the distance I run every day. I wanted to make sure that number looks good. People work for metrics. People don't work for delivering customer value. And if I know that I'm being measured in such a way, let's say, for example, if I know that I'm being measured on my reviews on Facebook or something like that, what I usually do is I just go out and ask everyone for a review in exchange with an Amazon voucher. I make sure that my reviews look good. Yeah. So again, is it Is it a specific one or two variables that you're trying to measure, or is it the holistic value that is being delivered to a customer is being measured?
I think my next question would resonate with a lot of viewers here. Tell me, how do leaders keep this customer value and the human energy at the center without burning them out?
See, for me, I always work on this story. Like, for example, you hired a plumber at your home, and the plumber has to run a pipe all the way from the top into your kitchen. And then the plumber said, like, you know what? I'll take like some 10,000 rupees to do this job. And after 3 days, this plumber only did run the pipe until half the distance. Now, will you pay him that 10,000? No. Why? He finished half of the work. At least you pay him 5,000. What is that you are paying him for? I want the water to come into my kitchen.
Yeah.
I don't want to pay a plumber for doing that half work. So that is why value is never created with partially done work. Okay. Value is never created with partially done work. So that is why we started experimenting with a concept called as relative value units. So are you making a bigger impact, or are you making a smaller impact? There's always been the fights happening across various social media that, hey, you know what? I'm working like 12 hours a day. I'm working like 14 hours a day. For me, these hours doesn't matter if your time doesn't translate into the real value to a customer.
Output has to be there.
So for me, that's where I usually want organizations to experiment something like relative value units. So most of the time I have also seen I've seen many leaders try to change the behavior of the people. Well, to an extent, that's okay-ish kind of thing. But in my experience, changing people only will result in limited results. What do you mean by that? So how many of us try to change our spouses at home? How many of us try to change our parents, try to change our wife, husband, or whatever it is? So changing people may not work all the time, or even if it works very rarely. So for which we take a concept of coaching as a supporting mechanism, helping people understand the thought process, helping people to discover what they're really trying to do. But changing people, most of the time, in my experience, is going to create a bigger impact. But what I say is, hey, can you create a system for people to collaborate? For example, is there an appraisal process in your organization where can I reward a team instead of an individual? Okay. So most of the time, most of the leaders I have worked with, they reward individual heroes. But how many heroes you find in organizations like that?
Right.
And if I know that you are going to get a lot of bonus, because if I finish my work on time, I wantedly or intentionally delay my work also. I've seen in many organizations this is happening. So it's not all about trying to understand or trying to make an individual or trying to create a lot of individual heroes. But at the same time, I would also look at, are we really trying to create a system where people can really perform? That's to me is the real bottleneck. Yeah.
So the takeaway is like, it's not, don't restrict yourself to those limitations and those rewards that you're seeking.
Yeah.
It's all about the mindset.
It's all about how do you transform your system that supports new ways of working. So maybe if I have to put a ratio on it, maybe 30-40% helping people discover their goals, their aspirations, their growth and everything. 60-70% focus on changing the system. Because most of the time individuals say that I'm ready to change if this person is ready to change or if my boss is ready to change. And that is where everything gets stuck. Yeah.
But ultimately, it's helping the organization perform.
Yeah.
At the end.
Exactly.
But say for all the leaders out there, if they have to adapt new ways of working playbook, what should they start doing differently from tomorrow, not
Okay.
someday?
So I would say do not chase perfection. So instead of chasing perfection, how do you iterate and get better over a period of time and reach perfection? So most of the time, what I often see is people wanted to chase perfection the first time, get it right the first time kind of thought process. And most of the time, it doesn't happen with people. That's one. The second thing is your ability to learn and adapt. What are we learning newly from what we did so far? The learn and adapt cycle is very, very powerful cycle when you are in an uncertain world. Uncertainty is not the real enemy, but at the same time, as long as you wanted to learn from uncertainty, it's going to create a bigger impact. And the other thing which I have seen was um, do not scale unless it is necessary.
Very important.
Yeah, most of the time, what happens is if you scale without a purpose or an intent, you're only scaling your problems. You're not scaling your practices, or you're not scaling those processes that matter to a customer. So that's something that I often see where the value is being created. And most importantly, the value system within the organization, is everyone in the organization aware of those values? For example, how do we focus on one thing and getting it done? How do we collaborate? How do we work together as more of a team rather than individual heroes? And how do you design processes that adds to a customer value? And one important thing is in most of the organizations, if your response time to a specific customer delivery is more than the opportunity window, you are losing big time.
Yeah.
See, most of the time, what I see is I see an opportunity that needs to be addressed within like 5 to 10 days. And then our response time is like 1 month. We already lost it. By the time we react to it, the market window elapsed. So these are a few things that I would look from a leader who is practicing the new ways of working.
That's a wonderful takeaway. I think for me, the entire summary is, progress doesn't mean doing more.
Yeah.
It's about learning fast and changing soon.
Yeah. So if you're not learning, you're probably are the one who is moving faster, but at the same time, you're not moving faster on the relevant things that matter.
And that's what matters in
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Sekhar sir, it's always a pleasure chatting with you. Thank you once again for your time and patience.
Thank you so much.
Well, before you log into your next meeting, just take a pause and look. Are we learning or are we just being busy? See you soon in the next episode. Stay with that thought. Thank you.